district, you know the Pope listens. Dynasty, our religion, for the blokes missing. On all of these trades, on all of these plays, on all of these grades. By the end of the day, y'all getting played. So, what you gonna do next? Try to fill up that flex? Send the homie a text? That trash offer's the best? You try to make it complex, then they text you back. Now all of a sudden they don't make any sense. Broaden your horizons, boy. Dynasty's not for the Simons, boy. These trades not for consignment, boy. Respect your opponent, y'all some piranhas, boy. This my advice, from me to you. Open up your cute little podcast queue. Search up GOAT District, my dude. Pop it in your ear, man. Y'all know what to do. It's the... And I always be trading. And I always be trading. And I always be trading. Y'all try to betray them, but first you gotta bait them. Fish.
What is up, Fantasyland? We're back in the district, and what an awesome time of year. We got that stretch, right? It's that 2-week stretch. If you're living somewhere like Theo, Dan, or myself, where you get like maybe 2 months of nice weather during the year, it's kind of bittersweet because you know it's almost over. Winter's coming real quick. But right now we got 2 weeks, guys, to binge draft, to overdraft, and no better way to get you guys ready to win those drafts with this man, the Fantasy Mojo. Darren, welcome back to the district, brother. We are excited for this one tonight.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. We got three more weeks till Vegas, so this is heavy draft season. So a lot of stuff changing.
Just telling JD, I'm drafting pretty much every day. I'm in like 3 football guys slow drafts right now. It's awesome to get you on because we respect your opinion so much, and I think that the tool that you provide is like invaluable. It's if you play FFPC and you don't subscribe to Fantasy Mojo, you better reconsider that because it's like something I go to every day. I always have your website open on my screen, and we really appreciate you taking the time to come on here. It's so close to the season. It's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And it's funny when I'm out in Vegas and I'm in the ballroom and I'm just like walking around and you see all the draft tables, I see all the laptops open and they basically like 5 or 6 guys at every table has my site up with like the draft boards and everything. It's funny.
I don't think your site is never up as a tab on my screen, on the many tabs and many screens that I'm running.
Yeah. So now we got a lot to talk
about.
And
I'm delving into it 100 times a day. It feels like easily, and I'm always doing that little deep dive. Okay, well, yeah. So, he is the 156th player selected, but let me click on his name and find out exactly where he's been going the last, 2 days or whatever. So,
yeah, a lot of people don't even know that. Like in any of the ADP boards, you click on a player's name and then it pops up the plot diagram of where the guy's gone over the course of the draft season, in that particular format. So I'm always in there too.
That feature is just money. Absolutely money.
So guys, we got a lot to talk about tonight. Let's jump into it. Darren, I want to start off more macro. You're hearing a lot of guys talk about how this year there's a lot more variety in the builds is kind of what you're hearing from a lot of the big drafters. What's your feeling overall on the layout of land this year versus last year when you're looking at ADP, when you're looking at the builds that you're seeing?
I mean, when I look at the boards, it does. The drafters, they're I guess better educated, and they're going in with strategies. Like back in the old days, it was guys would just build their teams of their favorite players. But now, with the evolution of zero RB, hero RB, robust RB, you can see there's strategies in place like across the league. It's not just a bunch of dudes getting together, and it's not like the home league where guys are just like picking from a draft sheet. And it's funny because before I came on here, I caught some of that Evan Silva and those guys. They're doing a main event. They're streaming that, and they're calling us boomers. It's they're like, we're in this room with these boomers. But then they start getting pissed off because they did like this nasty 0 RB build. I think that they waited till like the 9th round to start to hit an RB, and then they start getting mad because they start getting sniped, and there weren't any like other RBs that they wanted were gone. So, but you could see like they were right next to a hero RB team, and then down at the beginning, the guy went robust RB. I think he took 5 RBs to start his draft. So you can definitely see it in every draft, and it's not like a particular drafter goes in with like, okay, I'm doing hero RB on this. Like people are skilled up so much, they know, based upon that first couple rounds, like which way they're going to go, in a particular build, and then they just hit that path, and so you kind of see that in every board.
I think drafters are a little less scared of being bad at one position this year. In general, I think that like I don't know if it's like kind of like carrying on from best ball, or it's just a really aggressive strategy where you'll see in football guys in main event drafts, like you said, guys will start the draft with 5 straight running backs. Then you'll see the flip side where a guy will walk away with like 7 wide receivers in the first 8 rounds. You're seeing bully tight end sometimes. Is this kind of the craziest you've seen it in terms of the range of builds?
I'm seeing more structure than I have in the past, and that's because streaming of drafts is becoming more mainstream, and people are getting educated and like monkey see, monkey do. They're going to do what they see, right? They're going to learn from that. And I think just the masses are just, becoming better drafters or better structured drafters. So, in that sense, yeah, we see more sort of particular builds going on. And then I think people are, from the macro sense, I think they understand that they're going to build a portfolio like across a tournament, right? So they're going to be more comfortable with like, okay, I'm doing 0 RB in this draft, and I know that like in down the line I'm going to be doing a hero RB. So it's just people are going to build what they're going to build in a particular draft. So the draft community's just gotten smarter. It's like so much information is out there.
And Darren, speaking of information, you put together some amazing stuff for us tonight. So guys, if you're watching right now, smash the like, smash the subscribe, help us out. Check out fantasymojo.com. Like we said, guys, that tab should always be on your screen whether you're drafting FFPC or any other platforms, because again, guys, the best drafters are playing the FFPC, and they give you a great idea of where those values are when you're drafting, if you're comparing to the Fantasy Mojo ADP chart, especially when you can pull up the actual draft board versions. It gives you a nice way to track your draft and find those values. So make sure you check it out. But stay tuned, guys. We're going to have a lot of Darren's exclusive information. Guys, before we jump into the risers, anything, Theo, you got anything else? Dan, you want to ask more macro level, or anything you guys are seeing in the drafting streets? I know you guys right now got at least 49 drafts each on your screen.
I had one question for Darren, because I feel like last summer we would have the stacking. Stacking was the big kind of Twitter talk. You'd see the mega stacks being built. You all actually talked a lot about that. And I think it's interesting because now I don't know if stacking is quite as forced. Do you think kind of people took their medicine last year, where maybe stacks didn't work out, or do you think this is it was a fad, and people are looking more at like lesser correlation than like a big massive stack?
Yeah, I think people realize, well, in best ball format, stacking is more important, right?
Sure.
Yep.
Especially in those tournaments where there's advance rates and there's eliminations by round, and then in redraft, there's still some stacking on, but there's not like super stacking going on. Like they like to maybe, correlate a quarterback and maybe 1 or 2 receivers, but you don't see like people trying to go, because especially with those prizes, right? It's basically a winner take all out of, how many thousands of people. They want to build like this monster, and it's almost like they're disposable. Like if they don't get it, they're just going to keep trying to, to finally get those 2 or 3 super teams to put them over the top. It's not so much in redraft, especially like in like a football guys tournament, because it's like a 3-week sprint, right? So there's more phases to the game that you have to, to overcome to win a tournament like that. So, and then and I think Gilds was just mentioning the pies, but he brought something up on Twitter like that. In relation to stacking, you don't see like on the top winning teams, you don't see like Burrow and then Higgins and Chase. What you see usually is just one of the receivers in place, because having both of them kind of limits your upside almost, because you want to have the alpha from multiple teams, right? And if you have 2 of those top receivers from the same team, that could almost like hurt you a little bit, because you might be missing out on an alpha from another team on a given week. You want to hit the nuts in a given week.
And I want to compliment Darren. I'm sorry, Dan. Darren's also got in the. I was looking at our hardway board, Dan, that we drafted with Darren, and
Yep.
Darren's also sitting on a Dallas Goedert, Devonta Smith with 9th round.
Nice,
stack. So
nice. I love it.
Stack.
Love the Philly stacks.
I don't even remember that draft. That was so long ago.
Dan has a Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow stack, and he got Burrow in the 9th round as well. So you guys are both sitting on some really nice correlation right there at value.
Yeah, I'm ready to do some waivers already.
No, please, no waivers, no waivers. Question: do you guys think that some of it has to do with the fact that we're finding more ways to stack? Like before, everybody was going for the obvious QB, wide receiver 1, tight end or whatever it was. Where now you got the week 17 play in some of the big tournaments that people are trying to stack into their teams. You got naked stacks, you got stacks without QBs. Like we've found so many ways to stack now that maybe that kind of plays in with, you don't have to reach as much because there's more options to stack now.
Right. You can supercharge your team in different ways. So yeah, this year is the year of correlation that everybody's like, that they're on that. Like, so it's like, it's recency bias. They see what worked the last year, and then now that everybody's doing it this year.
And I was going to ask you, like, what's the zag? What's the zag this year? You know what I mean? Because I was listening to somebody today, actually on Davis Mattis's show, and he was talking about his favorite kind of build. And I swear he was describing my same build. And I don't really listen to this guy regularly. So it's like, you got to think how many guys are going in with the same idea. And you see it in the draft rooms. It's making almost the unique builds go so far off. You see guys taking 5 tight ends off the bat or whatever it is, because it's the only way. Like, what is the proper zag? And is that the way to do it? Especially in the bigger tournaments?
I think it depends a little bit whether you're talking redraft or like managed leagues or best ball to start with, and then I think we can go from there.
And how's it different? Like how do you see? How is the answer different, I guess, Dan?
I mean, for me, it's like different. You're going to have different stacking strategies that are going to work better in one versus the other in the first place. So, how you're going to pivot off of those is going to change as well. Like, I wouldn't pivot with 5 tight ends necessarily in a managed league, but 5 late tight ends or something like that in a best ball, maybe I would do that. So, that's one example.
And I also think the best ball, Darren, you're seeing a lot more of that final week correlation where people are trying to look for that magic game in the final 2 weeks of the season that's going to kind of push them over the top. I think maybe we weren't looking at single game, opponent correlation as much last year than we're seeing in like the big FFPC best ball leagues. Are you seeing that as well?
I mean, yeah, it's definitely more prevalent. I mean, and then now everybody's aware of it, and then everybody's doing it, and that's all anybody cares about. I mean, they're building these Spike Week's building some overlay that you can use on Underdog that like has like correlations built into it. I mean, there was awareness the year before, and like even I was aware of it. I was looking for that Cincinnati game for week 17, but that was just. It's not now. It's totally next level. It's like, okay, we've got like that the obvious correlation games, and then guys are like, well, so many people are going to have those correlations. We want to have like what are the the sleeper correlation plays like
Jets Seahawks, baby.
Chicago Detroit.
Chicago Detroit's the other one. Yeah. So it's just
but it's the extreme. It's the extreme, right? We went from 0 to 100, and then next year you're going to see that middle ground probably.
Something's going to happen,
or we're going to start paying attention to those other weeks, and that's my next question, Darren. Do you think maybe the mistake is focusing 217 and maybe not from the start of the playoffs or even getting into the playoffs?
Well, you got to get there. You could have the nuts team for week 17, but if you didn't advance to week 17, now we're talking best ball, then it doesn't matter. So you still have to navigate through 15 and then 16 and then 17 to have those guys to hit. So you almost, it's still, it comes down to having like hitting the perfect storm, So, and it could very well turn out that like whoever wins, like underdog or the FFPC for week 17, they don't have a great correlation. That's not guaranteed to be a correlated game that puts somebody over the top. Ultimately comes down to having the right players. And it just happened that like the right players last year was in a game that was correlated, and that's where all the points came from. So we'll just have to wait and see.
This is like the greatest chart you've ever put up on the screen, JD. I immediately stopped listening to you guys, so I'm just staring at how great this
it's pretty
spreadsheet
sweet.
is.
It's pretty. We might have to hire Darren just to help us make some of these charts for the show. I mean, this is a pretty sweet chart.
So let me explain what this chart is. These are the ADP risers for the FFPC main event, and what I did was I took the ADP of the teams like right when it kicked off July 4th, and they kicked off like 10 slow drafts. So I took ADP from those leagues and I compared it to what the ADP was for the leagues that ran yesterday and the day before. So now we have like, and that's only like a month, right? And you see like the violent shift in some of these players over just a course of 1 month. And one of the things you had on the show sheet was, what do you see? What's the difference in general in ADP between this year and last year? And I think one of the things it's like the prevalence of information and just how something catches fire and there causes these violent shifts in ADP so quickly. It's not a gradual change. I mean, things like overnight the fantasy world gets put on its head. So obviously at the top is Pacheco, who nobody was drafting. He was undrafted. Right. And now he's 1208, and that's just the average. But I mean, we've seen him go like somebody took him like in the 6th. So he's like the hottest guy. And then even in pros versus Joes, I looked at the pros versus Joes ADP, which is even later. That was just 2 weeks ago. The first week of that, nobody drafted Pacheco, and then in the second week, people drafted Pacheco in the 20th round.
Who drafted Pacheco in our pros versus Joes?
I believe that was us, wasn't it?
Yep. Yeah, Dan. We have actually even in our dynasty teams. I'm pretty sure we have a couple Pachecos. No, Dan.
Yeah. Let me double check that, but I believe we were the
nice.
Well, I'm a dynasty midget, and even I got
So let me ask you this, Darren. Those top 3 guys right now, the hottest topics are Pickens, Doubs, whatever you want to call them, or Pacheco. Which one's your favorite?
I kind of like Doubs.
Because of value, or just like overall, like just the player?
I think he's a guy who could really pay off on. I think he's less speculative than Pacheco and Pickett. Like once the season starts, like we see it every year. Like all this stuff that happens, a lot of the stuff that happens in preseason is noise, and it's tough to like, filter out what's noise versus like what are the guys who are really going to carry this momentum over into the season. And I think Doubs is going to be that guy because he's in the best position. Watson is sort of falling behind, and he's got Aaron Rodgers throwing him too. So it's kind of like you could see that happening. Pacheco, I don't know, man. I mean, that's like what's his You going to start him with confidence week
I
one?
feel like we've seen this. No, I was telling the guys in the chat today, I couldn't remember the names. Amir Abdullah came to mind. Like these guys that
Darwin
just
Thompson.
like, and a lot of the names that came to mind were actually guys that had draft capital. This guy has 0 draft capital. So like, I don't know, Theo, where are you in Pacheco? Is this for real? Is this fool's gold? Which one out of these 3 do you like?
So I was taking some shots on Pacheco, and I'm very open to drafting him. The problem is some people who we respect a lot, and some people who've been on the GOAT District, and some other drafters, people saw them drafting them, and I think that there's been such a steam that we saw last night in a draft that Abib Agbatoba of First and 15, a GOAT District guest. And a 2-time Football Guys champion, he posted it on Twitter, and we saw Pacheco go with the 5-6 turn. Now that's not going to happen any other draft this weekend unless there's some crazy Kansas City news. But the fact that people are willing to steam him up into the dead zone means that I'm probably not going to have exposure to him.
Yeah.
But I think people listening to this that might be in, home leagues and whatnot, I'm going to draft the hell out of Pacheco in those leagues. I just think I like the potential opportunity. I just think that when you start talking about Pacheco in the 7th and 8th round, you're kind of drafting him at a peak he might not hit, and you're passing up guys that could potentially really return a lot. So I'm not anti-Pacheco. I'm super happy to have him on the Pros vs. Joe's team and a bunch of dynasty teams. But I'm going to kind of sit back and not like reach to get him at this point.
Yeah, I
Guys,
think that's the important thing is you can't be reaching for him, and if you're going up in the 6th round, that's reaching. Probably the 9th round is reaching,
especially
yeah. So 12th round, something like that that to me is a little bit more palatable because you're down in the Darrell Henderson, can Gainwell, that sort of tier, and I think it makes a little bit more sense to maybe roll him in with those guys.
Give me all the Gainwell. Guys,
just
moving forward, just to let you guys know, if you're listening or watching right now, any of our special exclusive sign-up promos that we've got the link in the description of the show. We're going to add Fantasy Mojo's, the link to his site in there as well after we get off the screen. So you guys can find that down there. And we've got a lot more of these sweet charts that Darren put together for us. If we look going, let's say the next few guys, is there anyone that stands out? I know I see some of my favorites, some of Dan's favorites. Theo, Wandell Robinson is one of my most own guys. I know Nico Collins.
I think that the McKenzie shows, like what Darren was talking about, of how educated drafters are right now and how quick they are to react.
How up to date they are.
Yeah. Like the McKenzie, you get the beat reporters talking about his usage in the slot. You have Josh Allen say something positive about him. We remember how effective he was last year when he saw work opportunity, and he just completely dusted Jamison Crowder in terms of being drafted, and it seems like on the field. And usually you would see like this kind of news like kind of linger where maybe people wouldn't react till like mid-August. But like what Darren shows, like I was in a main event the other night, and I think McKenzie was like a 12th round pick. Like you're not getting McKenzie cheap. People are going to take him. And the fact that he's on Darren's list here means, he might potentially touch the 10th round. And I think people are willing to bet on a guy like that becoming like a Cole Beasley type where we might not have seen that kind of steam, 2 years ago. So I think that's interesting to me. And I also think that, the fact that guys like Jalen Warren pop up on the draft.
He looked good, man. He looked good in the. I don't know if you guys saw that Pittsburgh game, but he looked impressive to me. He actually looked better to me than McFarland.
I think that's a reasonable bet to make, and I think that the Steelers staff likes him. They're having him carry a football. He had a fumble. They're having him carry a football around with him, like he was the guy in the program. He was Omar in the program.
Nice.
He's carrying the football around camp. They don't do that to guys they're going to cut. So I think he's got a real shot. He
reminded me a bit of James Conner. Like he looks like a guy that could totally take it if he, if God forbid there was an injury or something. Dan, who do you like on here? Anyone stand out specifically with this list we have on the screen?
Yeah, I mean, somebody like Amir Abdullah makes a lot of sense to me, because if he does get the role that the passing, James White role, whatever you want to call it, in the Raiders offense, I think that's a very valuable role, and it's also something we're going to find out pretty quick. With a lot of these guys, I'm kind of looking to find out quick. Am I going to be in or out on them? I'll go ahead and draft them, but then in a couple weeks, I just don't want to end up with somebody that I'm too paranoid to cut, but I'm also too paranoid to put in my starting lineup. For me, Isaiah McKenzie kind of probably fits in that range. Like, I don't see myself drafting a lot of him, just because I don't really see a ton of upside there. What I see for upside for him is a guy who can be a bye-week filler, and at round 13 or whatever, I would rather draft a wide receiver that I think has a chance to really break out and be more of a star, like an Alec Pierce or something like that. So, I tend KJ Hamler, going around later. Nico Collins going just a little bit earlier. Guys like that, I think, are a little bit more palatable to me anyway. What do you guys think about that?
No, I'm with you. I mean, I like a few of those guys more than McKenzie as well. Definitely on Nico Collins, but I think there's a chance, like, having a exposure to the Buffalo offense might make me like him a little bit more. But yeah, I'm probably with you, Dan. I mean, I love Nico Collins. That's no secret, and I definitely would take him ahead.
Nico Collins, Brevin Jordan, love that stack. Nice and cheap. Fantasy Mojo, anything to add with the risers before we move on to the guys going the other way?
Well, just going off of what Dan was saying, like, you want to find out quick, and the cheaper the guy is during the draft, like if he was 17th or 18th, you can cut him and move on probably. If you've invested 8th, 9th round pick in Isaiah Pacheco, that's going to kill you if you decide to cut him loose that early. The draft capital that you spend on that guy, so you're like painted yourself in a corner almost. 8th, 9th round. I mean, you're probably going to have to hold on to him, and you're probably going to wait it out, like maybe 2-3 weeks at least, to see if, just because you spent so much on him. It's just like in the NFL, like they spend first round draft capital guys. They keep them around longer. Whereas if you came in as a later round pick, they don't care. They'll cut you. That's kind of the reality of the situation. So it's a dicey game to play with pushing some of those guys up so far so quick, so.
And it's the whole, especially the big tournaments, it's the whole deodorant thing, right? Like if you were getting McKenzie in the 20th round, 20s, right, guys that are in the same tournament as you had him in the 20th, and you're drafting him, in the 10th, 11th round, maybe even sooner. That's a big advantage to those other teams. So right, for me, it's always the Walmart deodorant, example. I just can't pay that price at that point when they, especially when I was paying 10 rounds cheaper on the back end.
Right.
Guys, the last name on your list, Darren, Ramondre Stevenson, who was getting drafted, but he's still made a huge rise up. And I just think the interesting thing about him is how he's leapfrogged Damian Harris now. And I think that's the correct thing, but it's still like, a guy who had 15 touchdowns last year and is healthy has been leapfrogged because of, I think that's another, it's just showing how drafters are getting smarter and they're not as locked in. Like Damian Harris would have been Damian Harris coming off of a 15 touchdown season 5 years ago is getting drafted in like round 3, right?
Yeah, round 3.
And people are just able to avoid it. They're able to see the flaws. Some analysts are getting smarter, and then some drafters are just getting smarter. And all of a sudden, Damian Harris is like a 9th rounder, and Ramondre Stevenson is the 7th rounder because we're hoping for that upside. I just think that's super interesting.
And I think there was some talk of Damian Harris maybe being traded, so that fed into it a little bit. So
yeah, I feel when the difference is like a couple rounds, it's not as dramatic. I don't have that same kind of Walmart deodorant type of thing, because it's there's guys like we said earlier, maybe they're reaching or whatever reason, but I definitely love getting Stevenson as my RB4 in like a fragile RB build. He's definitely a good value, but he is kind of climbing up now. So you kind of hope that he doesn't go up too high. Let's look at the guys going the other way, Darren, the fallers. What's your first thought? What's the first thing you want to point out to our audience?
So, yeah, it's the same thing. These are the guys that this is where they went in those July 4th drafts versus where they are now. And obviously Tim Patrick got injured. So a bunch of dudes spent a 12th round pick on him, and they're going to be waiting for waivers to fill that spot. And then right after him are the sort of the sad sacks. Like, everybody hates Ronald Jones now. It's the anti-Pacheco sentiment. And then poor Russell Gage. I think he's getting a bad rap. I think he's still going to contribute. He's injured now. But I think, 11th round. Maybe I'm biased. I just like Russell Gage. I don't know. Jefferson.
Either that or Julio Jones is not exactly the most durable player anymore.
How long before he's questionable with a hamstring?
I think of an old age home, Dan. When Julio was my first crush as a rookie. I loved Julio. I was obsessed with him as a rookie, and I love what he gave us. But let's face it, man, he's what they call over the hill. So's Brady, and we say that, but I don't know. It's hard to. I love Gage too, and I love the fact, Darren, that he's actually dropping in value.
Yeah. So take the discount if you've been.
Alex agrees. Alex Keaton agrees.
I don't think Julio's dust, like Alex does. And shout out to the chat. The chat is awesome tonight.
Chat is fire tonight. Love you guys.
Yeah.
But I do think Russell Gage, it's an overcorrection. And I think that you guys kind of hit the nail on the head. There's a lot of receivers in Tampa who are a little older. Plus Godwin with his injury history, we don't know how much he's going to play. So I think it just could be you're able to use guys because other guys are missing, and maybe they don't have their full wide receiver core at full strength most weeks. But you're going to want that. There's the tight end position is dry. There's Cameron Braid out there who's not somebody who's scaring anybody. Kyle Rudolph's not scaring anybody. So I think the targets are going to go to the running backs and wide receivers. So I think Russell Gage, it might be an overcorrection. Because people sure as hell liked him before Julio got there, and Julio got there, and now it's like you said, he's going super late. So to me, it's an overcorrection.
What I find interesting on your list, Darren, I'm looking at these rookie running backs on here. You've got Snoop Connor, Tyler Beatty or Batty, Keontae Ingram. These guys, especially with the rookie fever after the rookie drafts and all that, were guys were taking them late in drafts. What are your thoughts on these guys? Is it just because we haven't seen what we wanted so far in preseason? Why do you think these guys are drafting? Is it just Fantasyland being up to date and have their ear to the ground with what's going on on the depth charts?
A lot of it has to do with camp opening and people actually. These were the shiny new toys without actually seeing anything in camp. And then, there's not much buzz around these guys. So I think the
guy's name is Snoop Connor right there. And how can you not get excited? Come on.
Yeah. But people move on to the next shiny toy, and these guys aren't it. This is not to say that, Beatty, maybe there's still a lot of question marks in Baltimore. So I wouldn't, give up on him, but you can get him cheaper. But yeah, so many other rookie we saw Jalen Warren, right? It's just who's the hot guy. Yeah. And again, this later ADP is from the past 2 days, so it really is recency bias of, okay, I saw this happen in camp, and then it just it translates to draft rooms immediately.
I want to ask before I go to the obvious guy at the bottom there. I got to ask because Dan was huge on Terrace Marshall. Baker has become one of my favorite. If I miss on QB and I can get one late, I find he still hasn't moved up enough. I really like where he is right now at value. Is Terrace Marshall maybe that second year? And maybe Dan, you can start with the answer, or are we just kind of chasing our tails from last year? This guy's free right now, and you see it on here. Is there any hope for this guy with Baker in town in Carolina?
Yeah, I think there's definitely hope. He was kind of banged up last year. There are certainly some big red flags that he threw up last year as well. But, the price that he costs right now, which is basically last round of pretty much any draft, he's somebody that I'm trying to rotate in as a guy that I'm just taking a flyer on. So I think he's pretty interesting there. Like I think probably rather draft a guy like him than maybe, again, kind of comes down to the same thing, but Jamison Crowder, who I'm going to have to spend a little bit more on. And,
no upside.
I don't see the upside really as much.
Yeah. Theo, you put out some, even, whether it was in the chats or some polls on Twitter about our boy Gibson, and, he's dropping. You did some tests out there in Dynasty for a 2nd round pick.
I was 0 for 3.
Let the people know that, but you also let them know how the poll turned out and what your thoughts are on Gibson, because he's a hot topic right now. I mean, Robinson, everybody's on Robinson, like we're talking about the hot new toy. Is Gibson out? Is he good value? What's your thought right now on the running back?
So it seems like the Washington coaching staff, I'll give you kind of the negatives and the positives. The Washington coaching staff seems to be really souring on Gibson, and they're doing so in the media. He's called out by Rivera and Scott Turner. In the opening preseason game, he fumbled, and then he was benched. And Brian Robinson came in and played very, very well. We all know the amount of money they gave JD McKissick. So Gibson, they actually had him out there running with the 3rd team, kind of like a lesson learned type thing. And nobody's gonna accuse the Washington coaching staff of just being like the sharpest guys in the room either. This seems like kind of like an old school punitive thing. But it continued this week where Turner called him out for fumbling. And now Gibson is being put on special teams, first as like a gunner, where he's not going to be the special teams gunner. But they said the special teams coach likes to have a running back in the gunner position. So they put Gibson out there. It's just the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Then they also have him playing punt returner, playing kick returner, like basically sending him a message. The markets reacted very quickly, like Darren has said. Brian Robinson is not going like, a rocket ship up, but he's a solid 11th rounder, probably headed to the 10th round. I drafted him the other night in the main in the 11th round, but I don't know. The whole thing seems a little overblown with Gibson. Like, shout out to the Guilds, who's a really sharp FFPC drafter. He's still, not completely off of Gibson, and he actually has some exposure to Gibson, probably in the 6th and 7th round. So I don't know. At the end of the day, I don't think Washington has enough playmakers that they can phase out Antonio Gibson. Gibson has averaged 14 points per game for 2 consecutive seasons, fantasy-wise. So, he's been a productive player, but he fumbles.
Just make him walk around with the ball, man. Don't they? Yeah. Don't they watch? Come on.
So here's my thought on Gibson. If you're just, if he's going to go in the 8th round, 9th round, like he's been going lately, then just grab both. Just grab him and Brian Robinson. Grab them both. Wait and see what happens. It's just,
and you can
at this point the really isn't. You haven't spent too much draft capital on the one position from the one team.
Would you do it in both redraft and best ball, Dan, or is that just redraft you're talking about so that you can adjust it going into as we get more clarity?
I'm a little more inclined to do it in redraft, but I wouldn't, depending on the price of Gibson and the price of Robinson at the time, like what was happening in the draft room. If Gibson drafts to the back half of the 9th round and I can still get Robinson in the back half of the 11th round, I'd probably do it.
Shout out to Wayne Ellis, a really sharp NFFC drafter.
I'm loving the chat
who wants Gibson on somebody else's team. And Wayne, I right now I would rather have Robinson in the 11th round than Gibson in the 7th round. But I think that Dan has a point there. I think that Dan had a lot of success with this last year. Dan drafting the 2 Buffalo backs, and you end up really, really hitting on Devin Singletary with that build. Washington doesn't have quite the offense, but they don't have a lot of playmakers. A running back is going to be used. It could be a ugly committee, or more likely than not, I think one of those guys is going to kind of pull away with it. But I don't know. It's a little depressing to have. I have Gibson on an important dynasty team, and you couldn't really sell him. The poll that JD was talking about was we put random 2023 second round pick in Dynasty or Antonio Gibson, and Gibson ended up winning 54-46. It might have been because Dan had to use a couple of his burner accounts on Twitter to really push Gibson over the edge at the end. That's my theory, but it was close.
Dude, I was just making burner account after a burner account all day yesterday. You totally sapped my productivity. So
that's it.
Theo got the air horn finally fired up. Got to get it fired up at least once to warm it up.
Darren, what do you think about it?
My thought on pairing those guys, like if you spend like a 9th and then like an 11th, if you do that in a best ball, one of those guys has to really explode. Both of them can't be like, 10 to 15 point guys. That's not going to help you. Like think last year, if you took Fournette and then you took maybe, I don't know, maybe they're like a Gio or whoever was like
Vaughn,
or Keyshawn Vaughn. Well, Fournette totally went nuts and it worked. But if they're just both kind of middling guys, then it's not going to help you. So it's probably better in a redraft, and then you just discard the one that's kind of, going to be a jag.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's kind of why I asked the question. It's always, I'm the anti-handcuff on this show, so that's why I was asking.
Yeah, most of the time, that's the way you should be too. So,
all right, anyone else, guys? I see my boy Tanyan at the bottom there. Irv Smith and Tanyan are two of my favorite, probably most owned tight ends with Alberto thrown in there. Anyone else stand out to you guys on
Irv
here?
Smith's interesting. I don't know what you guys think, but he had like an injury, but he's going to be there for week 1. Do you think this is kind of an overcorrection? Dan, you're the Minnesota guy.
Yeah, I definitely think that's an overcorrection. I think Tanyan's probably going to start swinging back the other way now that he's been cleared to practice. And one I don't really understand is Amari Rodgers going. I mean, there's not a big difference from 18.1 to undrafted, but we still don't know how things are going to shake out in Green Bay at all. So especially for best balls, Rodgers is somebody I'm very happy to put on the end of my teams.
And I think people have given up on the Tampa Bay tight end situation.
Yeah.
First there's like, okay, Gronk retired, then everybody got on Brait, and now everybody's just like, forget it. It's like
for like a short period of time, you're throwing in the Gronkowskis at the end of the draft, thinking, he's going to come back.
I think when they signed Rudolph, that was when everybody threw their cards in and said,
they just give up. They're trolling us. They're trolling us with that signing.
All right. Anyone else before we go? We move on here.
No, I mean it's pretty predicted there.
All right, Darren. Talk to us as I adjust my screen here so we can show all the goodness at once. Talk to us about what we're
zoom
looking
out
at
a little bit. So this list here is guys that are going to be available. It's the ownership of these players, and I had on the site I took every player drafted so far in the main event, the football guys, the early best ball tourney, and the current best ball tourney, and I have the ownership listed. So you can see, like, in the main event, let's look at the bottom. So Doubs has only been drafted in 72% of the mains. He's been drafted in 53% of the football guys. So that means if you look in your waivers, free agents, those guys are going to be available. Those are the hot guys right now that are available to pick up via waivers.
Wow. A lot of loads are going to get blown in that first week.
Yeah, this is where the money's going to flow. Pickens was undrafted. That must have been like 5 or 6 drafts early on in the football guys. He's at 97%. So, and then Pacheco, he's available in 50% of the football guys, and he's available probably I guess that's 37% of them, which is crazy because that's only a month. Now, what's somebody going to spend on Pacheco in that first waiver run? And the interesting thing is you're going to have to make a call. Like that first waiver run is going to happen before what happens in the first game of the year. So you're going to blow 900 on Pacheco, and then he's inactive or something. I mean, then you're going to, that's going to be crazy.
You're going to see some wild bids on Pacheco.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think if I was in a league where Pacheco was on the waiver wire, I would be hoping somebody blows $900 and just takes themselves out of, free agency for the rest of the year.
You almost wish that the first waiver was sooner, because there's a chance that this whole hype thing kind of deflates a bit before we actually get to week one.
I don't. I want all the time I can to put
You-
in these waivers that are coming, because it's the worst. It's the worst part of. Grinding fab, like it's something that you kind of enjoy as like a labor of love, but it's not something you enjoy when you're actually typing it in.
Nope.
Yeah, it's really not something I enjoy with that preseason run, where I'm simultaneously trying to draft in all these leagues, cut down my dynasty rosters, and sit there and go through and get in all my first fab bids as well.
And my wife says men can't. And my wife says men can't multitask, right? Come on,
Right?
Come on, man.
In our hard, I have it open just because I have the hardware league. In our hardware league, Pacheco, Doubs.
Yeah, where do we get them?
Nico Cons. Oh no, they're all available on waivers.
This is that best ball hardware.
But the pros versus Joes, do you know where we got them when we got them?
Pros versus
Pacheco,
Joes, we got him 20th round.
Oh,
yeah,
beautiful.
And we got Alec Pierce also. He's starting to move up a little bit.
Yep.
We got him super late, so we did pretty well.
Nice.
Yeah, I think they're all free agents in the Hardway Football Guys League.
Yeah, I think so. There's going to be some interesting.
I was just going to say, it's going to be interesting to see that first waiver wire go through.
Yeah,
with
for a May draft.
Yeah,
there's going to be like 50 transactions.
Without a doubt.
I want to see which one of them scoundrels himself on.
Yeah,
Scoundrels putting 950 on Pacheco as we speak.
Oh, definitely.
Well, there were some crazy bids last year in that league in the first run. I was like, wow, like some of these guys are like going crazy. I don't usually do that, but I think Hubbard's a guy who will pay up for somebody if he feels strongly about it. So we'll see.
So before we get to the top secret part of the show, and by the way, if you're watching and you want us to even show this information, you better smash the like button right now, or we ain't showing shit. We're gonna put it behind what do they call it? Paywall? We don't do paywalls here, but we can.
You're gonna have to Venmo.
We can figure that out.
Yeah, you can Venmo us. We'll send it to you.
No, seriously, guys, that's we don't ask for much, man. We bring you the best on the planet when it comes to fantasy football, whether it's players, resources, or analysts, and we don't ask for much. So just smash the like, the subscribe. We appreciate it. Share with your friends, not your league mates, but your friends. We don't want you to lose because they're watching the show.
Before you hit that page, I'll put a plug in for my site here.
Do it.
So every year, people are like, "How much should I bid?" Like you're going to get that question like a million times. When they have to place their waiver bids. So one of the things that we have on the site is all of the waiver run data for previous years in FFPC. So you can go to our site and you can go to week one of the first waiver run, which is actually before the season starts, and you can see what the results are. And it's basically market data that you can use, right? So I can look and see, well, what did the top receiver go for last year? Right, in that first waiver run, and you'll see the distribution. Well, like 80% of the bids were like between 1 and 300, and then you had the outlier knuckleheads. Like Marquez Callaway is the guy. There was two guys who bid, 970, and then like the rest fell from 1 to 300. But you can see like it's like a heat map. You can see like where the bids are going to fall, and you can use that to help you place your bids for this year. You don't have to just guess. Like there's actual historical data that you can use to help make decisions.
Guys, go check it out, fantasymojo.com. It's a no-brainer, and that's just another reason on top of all the other goodness we've pointed out throughout this show. Shout out to Cody in the chat. He's loving the Pacheco. Everybody's loving it right now this time of year. The hype is real. So let's jump in the goodness. I'll drop this on the screen and let our peeps know what we're looking at.
All right. So what you're looking at here, I went in and I looked at all of the winning waiver bids for last year. And there's like this psychology of people, like when they're entering their bids, like what dollar amount do you put in there? And so what this chart shows you is I looked at the winning bids and like what was the last number of the winning bid? So I might put in $10, $18, whatever. 34% of the winning bids ended in the number 1. So people put in 21, 31, 41. That's the way like people are thinking when they do this. So knowing that, you probably want to pick a different dollar amount. So you can see 4 and 6 represented 5% each. So if 33% of the people are entering waiver bids that end in $1, be the guy who ends it in 4 or 6. And that's just a tiny edge that you can use.
Interesting.
To help.
No podcast in America is
That
giving
is
you
awesome.
more valuable information.
That is
than
awesome.
what you're looking at
Dan, how many times have we talked about this exact thing? I think I'm an 8 guy, and you're no. What are you?
I'm a 3-8 guy.
You're a 3-8 guy. I'm an 8 guy.
But this kind of gives me a little bit of pause on that because, yeah, I mean it's part of it is 34% of
that's crazy. That's a third of the bids.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's awesome.
What percentage of people are making bids with that as their last number? Because I bet that percentage is
Well, I don't have the losing bids, but I feel like it still represents the cross section of bids. Across. It's not like one more. I think it's still if we were to extrapolate that over all the bids, I feel like it would be the same way. And it's just like. It's people typing on the keyboard, right? It's what's the most convenient thing? 31. Does $1 higher than like 30? I don't know what's going on in their minds, but this is what people are doing.
I always have the expression: friends don't let friends end a fab bid in a 9. But I guess
that shirt's being made, by the way.
Yeah, it's a good one. But the 9, which you always feel like is the correct my French, JD, but it's the no balls kind of bid. Because you're not willing to cross the round number. I feel like 0 is the lazy person who just wants to rush through fab. And I thought that 5 was the lazy man's fab number, but apparently 5 is sharper than 0, 9, 8, 7. But one is the winning fab bid.
Kyle is asking, does that include $1 bids?
No, because I only looked at bids over $10.
Okay.
So, but if I included those, I mean, $1, that's a separate analysis.
That would probably ramp that number up, I would imagine, to like
big time. Because $1 when I do bids less than $10, I always put in like 6, unless my budget is down to like $8. But I try and just be the guy because knowing most people are going to put 1, I'll put something higher than that.
And shout out to Dave in the chat. That does make sense, Dave. Like, why is 2 not?
Yeah, but above the 1, right?
It's not. It's 1. If you're not ending your fab bids in a 1 after seeing this, then I don't know what you're doing.
Guys, what channel is giving you this? Like, we're looking for every edge possible, right? We're all degenerates. We're all drafting like crazy right now. It's August. We're watching this show. What channel is giving you this kind of detail?
Oh, wait a minute.
To getting an edge.
The single dollar bids are included in this.
They are included?
Oh,
there you go.
I think there's another stat that I'm going to give you that where I only looked at.
This is Football Guys and mains?
This was the entire universe of FFPC waivers.
So it's the classics as well. That's awesome.
Anything where you're placing waiver wire bids.
And also Dynasty. So anybody watching the show, any format you're doing, this is covering you. This is
best ball redraft Dynasty. Stuff. Yep.
And how many? I know you can't. I know you. Some people might not be familiar with the FFPC, and they might not necessarily be familiar with your site. But if you had to ballpark guess how many leagues this is drawing from, Darren, you're talking about an absurd number of leagues.
It's thousands of leagues.
Thousands and thousands.
Yeah, I mean Dynasty, you got like 1,000, and then Football Guys was 1,100. So that's thousands right there. And then you got you'd be surprised how many classic leagues there are. Those $35 classics, man, they fill a ton of those things.
Really?
Yeah. So it's not just high stakes. Like people are doing it. Like it's weird. Like nobody does them till June. And then all of a sudden, like the floodgates open and the whole world's doing $35 classics. That's kind of shocking.
Well, this is amazing information. This is more than I thought you would bring tonight. This is awesome.
Right.
Appreciate that, Darren, and I'm sure the audience appreciates it, guys. Show your appreciation. And Darren, go check out the site, Fantasy Mojo. It's a must subscribe, and for the price, I mean, it's peanuts, man. Like, it's a no-brainer.
It's a small investment.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're a high stakes player, and I mean, you're hesitant about that minimal, I don't know. You get priorities, maybe not in the right place.
Unless your name is Kevin Wheeler and you're just cheap. No, I'm kidding. He told us that the other day. That's the only reason I throw it out there.
But
you're the best, Wheeler. You're the best.
We love Wheeler, man. He's our boy.
I got one other waiver wire bid stat for you. So when I looked at the other lazy way that people enter bids is still put in doubles. They'll put in 11, 22, 33, 44, or they'll do 12, 23, because it's physically close on the keyboard, 45, 56, like the second number is one more than the first. And those bids that were either double or like one above $1 amount, those winning bids were 30% of all of the bids. The winning bids were either doubles or the number plus one. And that should have been like, and that the number, the amount of numbers in that set is like, it's like 18% of the numbers. So, you've got the doubles. So that's 11 to 99 ending. So there's 9 there. And then there's 8 more that are like 12, 23, 34. So that's 17%, but almost double the amount of winning bids in relation to like what those numbers are. It's 30%. So don't do that. Don't put 23, don't put 30, put 37, put 38. Like, it's not comfortable, but everybody's just doing what's easy, especially if you're mass entering waiver wire bids. That's what's happening. People are double tapping the keyboard.
Right. And the other thing is too, I mean, if you're not in too many leagues, you can just look and see what different people are doing for their winning bids. Like a lot of times, certain players will always end their bids in a 6 or a 3 or whatever. And if you know that, and if you think you might be going up against that particular player against that particular owner for a player, then, take that and use that to your advantage. Just go one higher than what they're going, if that's your biggest competition.
Right. You can look at the failed bids for a person.
Right.
That's next level analysis, and you may not have that luxury of time, but you can certainly do that.
Before we go to I'm going to pull your ADP there. Frank's got a question with regards to Pacheco and Pickens. We'll start with you, Darren. Any guess as to how the bidding will go? The average winning bid is what he's asking.
If it was today, I think you'd see a handful of 900 bids. And I think the average winning bid would probably be like between 600 and 700 if it was today. So, and then Pickens probably a little bit less, maybe like 400 to 500, I'm thinking. And then, a handful 700 and above, because there's always knuckleheads running around that I've seen people bid 1,000. Like, they don't even know the rules. Like, what do you think this is? You get 1,000 per week? I don't understand it. So we'll see. But I think there's going to be there'll be other waiver wire runs in other leagues outside of FFPC that can give you some sort of insight into what those bids will be.
So I wanted to pull up your ADP here. This is the FFPC main event draft. And guys, myffpc.com. There's a link in the comments or in the description below. It'll hook you up with a free sign-up bonus, an exclusive sign-up bonus. Go check it out. Go sign up. Honestly, guys, like, there's no format of fantasy football that you're not going to find on there, from $5 entries all the way up to like 10 grand or whatever the ceiling is. I'm not rich enough to play in the nosebleeds like Dan and Theo, but it gets up there. So go check it out, guys. Right now, all the tournaments are popping, whether it's the best ball tourney, 125 buy-in, 200,000 for first. You can play for 500 grand in the football, guys. You can play for $1 million in the main event. You can play literally any kind of fantasy football you can think of, dynasty, redraft, and best ball. Go check them out. Tell them we sent you. Darren, I pulled this up because what's fascinating me, and actually it worked out because I didn't think it would show up this way on this board. I pulled up the main event draft board, the latest August one, the ADP. And I wanted to ask you, what are you seeing after those first 5? Like there's that first 5 tier. I think, I don't know. I know like myself, the guys on the screen, I think as well, that would be like our first tier. What are you seeing after that? Do you seeing a lot of variety? Are you starting to see a trend building? What are you seeing in the 6, 7, 8, 9 spots?
You tend to see Kelsey and Eckler consistently within the first 10, somewhere in there. But the rest of those guys, I mean, Cook tends to stay in the first, but any of those guys between 108 and 206, like up to Aaron Jones, they're completely mixed. It's going to be, they might go in the end of the first, they might last at 205. It's kind of,
so the top 3 tight ends, the top 6 receivers, and then your running backs going all the way to Aaron Jones is
they're kind of just mixed in there. And then like things really sort of like stabilize when you get to that 2-3 turn. You usually see the same guys there. And then the other thing, which is money every time, is at the end of the third. So the 4th and the 5th rounds are always heavy tight ends. So if you don't, you got to know that if you're drafting between the 10th and the 12th spot, that a huge tight end run is coming once that 4th round starts. And you better grab, not a huge tight end, a huge wide receiver run. The wide receivers are going between 4. Back to the 4th, and then coming around to the 5th. It's all wide receivers. So you need to get a wide receiver there, or I call it the swamp gets drained of wide receivers by the time it comes back at the end of the 5th.
I had 2 questions for you. First, maybe you could comment on Saquon Barkley, who seems to be rising. I know I just took Saquon
unbelievable
in a football guys at the 10 overall. And I think that he's going higher. Where do you anticipate Saquon's ADP will be by the time we draft in Vegas? And then another question I have is the 1 spot. We see the 1 spot going running back, wide receiver. You see some of the mix in wide receivers, but it seems like that's like an extremely common build. I know I've done it, and I get the reasoning behind it. But do you think that people should be mixing up more in terms of position structure when they get the 101?
You're talking about rounds 2 and 3, Theo?
Yeah. Excuse me. Sorry, I meant the 2-3.
So you meant running back, then receiver is the concept.
Yeah, it seems like you take Taylor or McCaffrey, and then you take 2 wide receivers. It's the most common approach to the 1 spot, and I'm just curious if that's kind of how Darren's seeing it as well.
I mean, most recently, I'm seeing a lot of running back there at the end of the second.
Fournette,
a lot of Kamara.
I was going to say, Fournette.
Javonte, ETN. ETN is shown in the middle of the 3rd here, but it seems like every time I look at a board, he's, late 2nd.
Yeah.
And it is a tight pocket of like maybe 4 or 5 guys that kind of go in that spot. Tyreek is almost always there. So
that's that build that I was talking about earlier, with that the double running back and then just smash receiver and then other positions. Once you've got your 2 studs, even from those early spots, which like you said, Theo, is usually the spot where you want to leverage having JT or CMC with the receivers in the next few rounds.
The smart guys are calling that 2 running back and then ignore running back, bimodal running back building, JD.
I can't keep up. I can't keep up, man. Between the translation in French and being a dumb guy, I just it's too much, man.
But the thing I'll do before I have a draft is I'll go to the site. And again, when I built the site, it was just the stuff I built for myself, that I used to help me draft. And then I was like, well, I think everybody's probably going to benefit from seeing the stuff. But anyway, so like if I do a football guys draft tonight, first thing I'll do is I'm going to go back and look at the completed drafts from yesterday. So there'll probably be like 5 or 6 slides, and I'll look at the boards for those. And that really just that gets you up to speed really fast.
Well, you even have my favorite thing is just going to the last 5. Like that's how great this site is, guys.
That's the ADP. But if you go up top to the draft boards.
Oh, I see. I see what you're saying.
August draft.
Yes, I see what you're saying. There it is.
And then, well, you got best balls up there. But if you scroll down, you'll hit football guys. And you see that. And then look over on the right, it says completed, right? So that tells me that's a live draft. Then I'll click on the draft board, the one to the left of that, the next. And then it just brings up, I mean, every draft board that the FFPC runs online is here.
So you can look up the most recent one is what you're saying, as opposed to just looking at the average.
And the one thing you don't get from looking at ADP is it doesn't convey builds, right? You got to look at the draft boards to get a sense of what is a guy see, and look at this one you popped up right here. This guy did 3 running backs from the one spot, and that's
a great point, Darren. Great point. That's a fault that I had. See, I was pulling up ADP, and that's actually a good point because this actually relates more to the builds and getting to see.
The ADP board is purely just.
But having both, I think having both up is the key to having the information you need going into the draft.
Right. Sometimes I'll pull up an actual draft, but it depends. Everybody works differently, but we've got the data all different ways, so people can do what they like the best.
Oh, it's awesome, man. It's invaluable if you're like we said, doing any kind of fantasy football.
I'm just curious, Dan and JD, maybe just going back to the Saquon. Do you see him rising further, Dan?
Yeah,
like jumping Eckler, Kelsey, maybe.
Maybe I don't know if he'll jump Eckler. I don't know if he'll jump Kelsey, but I think he'll be in that range. Like on occasion he might, but I don't think we're going to get to the point where we see Saquon consistently going above Eckler and Kelsey. I could be wrong, but I don't think so.
I could totally see him, Theo, going in that 3 spot.
Yeah, but seeing those 3 guys getting kind of mixed up a little bit for sure.
I think it'd be tough. I mean, I don't know that he can really. He's consistently going like the 9th or 10th is about as early as he's going right now.
Yeah,
without seeing him in preseason, I don't know what else would push him over the edge.
Yeah, I think it'd have to be some preseason action. The other thing is Pittsburgh looks better than they might look better than people. Because people were down on Harris a bit, I think, with the Pittsburgh offense situation. So
I think Saquon will jump Harris. I just think based on the way that the scheme is going.
Does he go past Eckler? You think?
No, I don't think you can.
Think that's where it stops?
I think it's because I think like he's going to jump Harris. I think like he's going to jump Swift. Dalvin's kind of Dalvin. He's always going to have people that love him, but I just think that the potential upside of Saquon Barkley leading the Giants in receiving. I just think he's such a smash spot. I don't see him jumping Eckler though. No matter what happens the next month, just because that LA offense people want pieces of, and it's a very kind of safe pick with Eckler as the RB3. But I think I could see Saquon settle in as RB4, RB5, RB6, something like that.
People are high on Swift right now too. He's steaming up. But yeah, Harris is kind of fading a little bit. Sometimes I see him drift into the early second.
Yeah.
But Saquon, his upside is ridiculous. If that guy can stay healthy, and if they kind of put it together, he could finish top 3 RB like that. Definitely,
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, guys, we have 5 minutes left with Darren, just because we have a monster follow-up. Dan and Theo are taking on some savages in a RotoWire NFFC online challenge. What is it? 250 grand for first. You guys are going to crush this draft room, by the way. I'm just putting it out there. I know you're playing against some ballers, but you guys will take it down. I don't doubt it.
We will do our best. It's a very tough draft. When there's like 5 guys who've been on the GOAT District in the same draft, then it's going to be a hard one. And Chad Schrader's in this one. Nelson Sousa's in this one. Kyle Hilseem is in this one. Danny Mueller's in this one. Who am I forgetting, Dan? Somebody else is in this one.
There's
so that's going to start, guys.
But it's loaded.
I'm blanking on who it is.
It'll be up. They'll be going live at 10 p.m. So in 20 minutes from now, Darren, you not only brought the fire and filled the 69 easy. even comment on that, but
Don't do it, JD.
filled it with so much fire. I know the chat appreciates it. The audience, I know we loved it. We loved all the information you brought. The graphs were nice, but the detail of the information that was in there was priceless. We appreciate you, everything you do. Remind the people about your site, about any subscription details or anything they need to know to get set up for this draft season. Anything else you want to share before we close this bad boy out?
Yeah. So if you like what you saw, go to fantasymojo.com. Right on the front page, there's a virtual tour. That there's way more stuff going on besides what we did here. ADP and boards is just kind of the tip of the iceberg. We've got other tools that'll help you. So just take the tour. I'm not really running around pimping the site. I mean, people find it, and this isn't my livelihood really. So it's kind of, I know what it does for people because it works well for me. And the other thing I would say is, and we were kind of talking about this before the broadcast, the Fantasy Football Expo. I mean, I highly recommend people go make the trip to Canton, and you're going to meet like all these dudes you see on Twitter. Like you're going to have a chance to like meet these people. If you're trying to like get into the industry, that's the best way to do it. Cause you can sit, I mean, I sat there and I was having a conversation with John Hansen, Fantasy Guru, for like 15 minutes, who to me was like the guy who got me sort of, I don't feel like I'm an industry guy, but I guess technically I am. But I mean, I was subscribing to him since 1995, and he was like, "I remember you," because at that time his subscription list was only like 100 people. It was just emailing out rankings.
Yeah, I've had those.
But you have access to everybody, and I just can't. It was at the stadium. I was out there talking with Shope, Krautwurst, the Go Bills guys, the main event champs. Like it's just really great. And of course, Vegas, for high stakes. But this is the Expos is more of like an informal, just sort of like, like I was saying, it's like a summer camp for fantasy guys. So
yeah, I'm
there next year.
We got to send Theo. We're gonna send Theo out there next year.
Yep,
I'm in.
We're going to try to make it out there. But we appreciate you making it out here with us tonight. Darren, like I said, the information was awesome. We appreciate your site. Guys, make sure you check it out for draft season. Theo, before we close it, what do you have going on? What do we have going on, man? We're bringing some more heat in the next couple of shows.
So we have a program change. Chad Schroeder's
right.
going to be on tomorrow night, not Friday.
Yeah.
So we'll tweet it out. But, we don't need to tell anybody watching us right now who he is. He's going to be on tomorrow night. Dan and I are competing against him tonight, so hopefully we'll have a board to talk about. Hopefully we're not trying to hide that board, which is a possibility in a draft this sharp. But we'll do our best. And then we have Pat Carrain coming on next week on Monday, NBC Sports Edge. Really, really sharp guy, ship-chasing guy. I'm sure a lot of you enjoy his work, and he's going to give us some of his league winners. Favorite plays of ADP. And then we'll have a favorite of the GOAT districts. We'll have It's a Trap, which is our fades show. This year, Noah Riddell, extremely sharp FFPC player who everybody who I'm sure knows on the show, is going to be joined by Tommy Libretti, who took down the NFFC Silver Bullet and the NFFC Primetime last year. So we have a double NFFC champion with a great FFPC player for that. It's going to be an awesome show.
Wayne is asking, guys, make sure you watch. Wayne is asking for the stream for the live draft you guys are doing at 10. Yes, there is a separate stream. It's been up all afternoon. Go check it out on the GOAT District channel. Make sure you subscribe, and you'll be able to follow along with the draft. Awesome show tonight, guys. myffpc.com. How much we play on that site, how much we support it. They support us. So go check them out. Fumbling around my buttons here. Underdog Fantasy, use the code district for all of these guys in the link or in the comments below. You'll find a link for each of them and get all your GOAT gear at veridianglobal.com. Stick with us, guys. 10 o'clock, Theo and Dan will be drafting with Sharks. We're out for tonight. We'll check you all later.
GOAT District. district, you know the Pope listens. Dynasty, our religion, for the blokes missing. On all of these trades, on all of these plays, on all of these grades. By the end of the day, y'all getting played. So, what you gonna do next? Try to fill up that flex? Send the homie a text? That trash offer's the best? You try to make it complex, then they text you back, now all of a sudden they don't make any sense? Broaden your horizons, boy. Dynasty's not for the Simons, boy. These trades not for consignment, boy. Respect your opponent, y'all some piranhas, boy. This my advice, from me to you. Open up your cute little podcast queue. Search up GOAT District, my dude. Pop it in your ear, man, y'all know what to do. It's the... And I always be traded. And I always be traded. And I always be trading. Y'all try to betray them, but first you gotta bait them. Fish.
That was awesome.
You guys better take down this draft tonight or don't even bother showing up tomorrow. Oh shit, we're still live.